Yes. A very thank you, Praveen, and a very good afternoon to all of y'all. I think it gives me great honor and privilege to be here with such an esteemed panel. At the outset, I want to thank each one of you who have come here from Pan India on Independence Day on at 2:30 in the afternoon after lunch. You could have been at many places, but in spite of that, you choose to come here for education. And I think that's a tribute to all of you all. Wishing you all a very happy Independence Day on behalf of all the panelists, and a heartfelt thanks and gratitude for all the support all of you have been giving us. We have been getting hundreds of calls from across India, especially in the last 1 hour on how to log in, and we don't want to miss out. So I think that can show the importance of the topic and the wonderful panelists who are here for the topic. So before I start out, I would love to really thank each one of you. So just type out the city you're from. Quick, come on, everybody. Quick, go. Everybody, type out the city you're from. So where we have from Kanpur, Chennai, Kanpur, Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Jammu, Coimbatore, Madurai, Salem, Delhi, Ranchi, Mumbai, Delhi, Ranchi, Mumbai, Kolhapur, Bokaro. Oh my God, we are from north, south, east, west, Gujarat. Oh wow, that's just literally every city has come. Every city from Jammu to Kanyakumari are all there. Delhi, Coimbatore, Kanpur, Delhi, Bangalore, Coimbatore, Mumbai. Oh my God, wow, this is just extraordinary. This is called globalization. I mean, this is called nationalism, I would say. Nationalism. This is actual nationalism in the pandemic. And I am telling you, getting such panelists and getting all of you here at 2:30 on Independence Day is next to unthinkable, if not for the corona. And I think that is where I say every challenge also has opportunities and learnings. And I think this is a standing testament for that. I think a big round of applause to all of you all for joining from all across the country for this great initiative to really get empowered yourself inside of education. So, national education policy. It has been in the news for quite some time. I took a lot of time to dwell deep into it. It was as though going back to my history classes. I started going through the whole thing. So before I go to my panelists, I would give a 5-minute brief on a small overview on what is the National Education Policy. So, National Education Policy 2020. Now, many of us think it's 2020 because it's got so much of reach, so many people are talking about it. But there has been an evolution to the education policy. The first education policy was in 1948, which was the University Education Commission, which was started by Dr. Ramakrishna. And this commission started with the basic things of training, because that's where we just got our independence. So it was only about training, knowledge and wisdom, and bringing in equality, justice and liberty. Then was the Secondary Education Commission, which was started by Lakshman Swami Mudaliar. Now this was the one that set the NCRT in rolling in 1952 to 1953. Then we move on to the Election Commission, and this is the Kothari Commission. Every Tamilian knows the Kothari Commission because that changed the history of Tamil Nadu, and that was the one of the Dravidian movement that started. The 3-language policy that is being debated today was not started today. It was launched by Indira Gandhi in 1968 as part of the Kothari Commission, in which they had the huge uprising. The same Congress that is saying no to no to the 3-language formula today, was the same Congress which bought the 3-language formula way back. This is the irony of Indian history. And then from there, we have started with training. And in fact, it was so beautiful, the Kothari Commission of 1968, I'm just reading a line out of it. It dealt with training, quality of teachers for school, stress on moral education, inculcation of a sense of social responsibility, and introduction of work experience. Today you're talking about vocational education and internship. Way back in 1968, National Policy on Education had a mention about it. And then 6% of GDP. Today everybody is celebrating 6% of GDP. But ladies and gentlemen, you should know 6% of GDP spend was first proposed in 1968. And then after that, we had the amendment in 1976. And after the amendment, we started moving into the 1992. 1986, modified in 1992, which is the National Policy of Education, NPE, Acharya Ramamurthy and Reddy Committee. And then after that, There has been no committee report except the TSR Subramania Committee of 2016, and following which we have now come to the National Education Policy. And now is the area where we are looking at one of the biggest, could it be the biggest revolution Indian history has seen? Or is it the 1968 policy which is refurbished, like the Amitabh Bachchan of the 1960s and 70s is now bringing back to stay relevant to the 2020? That answer I hope you will all get from the panelists before the session gets over. Now, what is that we have got inside of this education policy? The most important are 6 key principles: respect for diversity and local context, equity inclusion, community participation, use of technology, conceptual learning, unique capability, critical thinking, and creativity with continuous review. Followed by, in school education, we go in for 100% enrollment, newer facilities and understanding, school rationalization, tackling dropouts. By the way, many of you will be thinking, sir, every time dropout is coming in every policy, every time all across from independence, we are talking about it. Still, there are 2 crore children who are out of the schooling system. How do we still get them back inside? Multiple pathways to learning, Right to Education Act extended up to 12th, and program for long-term out-of-school adolescents. Then we have the universal ECCE, which is foundational learning, preparatory class, universal access, multifaceted. Then you have the universalization of early childhood care education, which is the 5+3+3+4, which is supposed to be a big revolution today. Then curriculum to integrate 21st century skills, core concepts, education of gifted children. This is something very, very new. Gifted children given the priority, that modification in the curriculum, rigid separation between arts and science. No rigid separation between arts and science. That means a child of biology and a medical student can also take something to do with economy. So where they can get a multifaceted kind of generation. Gender Inclusion Fund, which is something very, very new for this time. Board examinations, which will be low stakes based on knowledge application. Now, what that is, I'm sure our panelists will be ready to answer that. ECE, 360-degree holistic progress card, which is really a wonderful thing, but we really don't know how it is going to translate into. The 360 degrees, NTA, National Professional Standard Test for the teachers, book promotion policy, transparent online self-disclosure, and then ensuring the access to all through multiple pathways, building schools, learning outcome, peer tutoring, alternative center, bringing back dropouts. It's a brilliant, brilliant system with an expected outcome based on SDG goals, universal access, 2 crore children, effective governance, overcoming language barrier, foundation literacy, and common standards. So this is a kind of the whole spectrum, an integrated curriculum, a flexible curriculum along with assessment. This is what I would say as a 3 bullet points as an overview of it. And then you have the 5+3+3+4 system, which is now everybody is doing calculations and number max, even I suppose doing that. How does this actually fit into ECE, Ambada, then where will the preschools go, where will the major schools go? I'm sure all of you will be getting these answers before we close the session. And then the multifaceted framework pen, and you're all excited to start this session. Type out excited on the chat box. Come on, everybody. Come on, everybody. Dr. Chandrasekhar. Dr. Chandrasekhar is the CEO of JJI Schools. He has over 16 years of experience as the CEO of Jain Group of Institutions. And he's a Rex Karamveer Global Education Chain Champion Fellow of 2019. He's currently on the CII YI National Management Team as the Chair of Thought Leadership. He has been a past chair of the Hyderabad chapter of CII. He's an alumnus of IIM Lucknow and represented India at the International Visitor Leadership Program. He's on a mission mode to impact 1 million children through his works and wants to leverage his experience in the education sector. He has spoken to more than 30,000 people throughout 4 continents and is ranked in the top 1% of a group of 300 leading professional speakers. He's a recipient of a number of awards. His wit, energy, and jaw-dropping insights reveal practical principles necessary for success in today's cynical marketplace. I think Chandrasekhar is a person with a heart. We have been on multiple forums. I have addressed all the students of JGI group of schools. A person who's very passionate, very meticulous, very, very giving for children. Chandrasekhar sir, it's a great honor and privilege to have you as part of this panel. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kannan. Good afternoon, and wishing everyone a very happy 74th Indian Independence Day. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is what I call the fossil man. We have all seen Jurassic Park movie. I think I saw it when I was a small child. This particular person, when I went to meet him in his office, he gave me a rock. And he asked me, how many years is this, doctor? So somebody gives a rock, what will we say? 300, 400 years. He tells me it is 300 million years. 300 million years with a dinosaur inside, dinosaur egg inside. It was the egg of the dinosaur that he gave me in his hand. He is a person who is so deep in history. He analyzes history. His room itself is an encyclopedia, be it with books, be it his wall with all the statistics and numbers. He's a numbers man. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Bhavani Shankar, the revered principal of the Omega International School. Bhavani Shankar is an undergraduate, postgraduate, pre-doctoral students, Department of Zoology. He's almost a biology, I think he'd call a wizard of this, because the way he speaks about biology and zoology, I don't think anybody can speak. So much in depth of the concepts. One of the most beautiful part about him is the teacher trainer with both middle school, high school and senior school students. He is handling the school, which is one of the Omega International School, which is one of the most pioneering schools of CBSE, IGCSE affiliated in Chennai. There's around close to 8,700 students with 430 faculties. He's also R&D. He's a very, very meticulous person in research, designs. He's a resource person for national, regional level training programs in marine biotechnology, coastal zone, management and aquaculture, low temperature biology, annual temperature. I think what and all he has done in biology, I think even my forefathers wouldn't have even thought about. To that extent, he's depth in research, a wonderful, more than anything, a person with a heart who wants to give, who wants to do something for students. Very, very passionate. Welcome, sir. It's a great honor and privilege to have you here, sir, Dr. Bhavani Shankar.
Thank you, Dr. Kannan, and wishing all of you a very happy Independence Day.
Thank you. And the next is we call the Badshah of education. I had a very short mention of him. I met him in a very short span 6 months back when we were in a program with PV Sindhu. He was sitting next to me. That is where we got to know each other. Oh my God. After that, my head started spinning. There is a synonymous name in private education. Education, if you have any problem in education, contact one person, means everybody will contact this one person only.
Only Dr.
None other than Mr. Bhavan Shah, the CEO of Education World and Parents World. A very, very dynamic person. Every school owner, major school owner in India has a problem, be it mental, emotional, related with school, anything. The one number they call for solace is Mr. Bhavan Shah. The most busiest man post-COVID, because everybody calls him to know when the policy will change, what will happen. But more than anything, he is a wonderful human being, down to earth, a lovely family man whose son is a cricketer. We're going into that also because there was no mention much about sports in national education policy. But and a person who talks about varied sets of education, studies education very deeply, interacts with both policy members, media houses, and educationists, and teacher and grassroots parent also through Parent World. So he is a 360-degree knowledge person on education. Bhavan Shah, it's a great honor and privilege to have you here, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kannan, for the human touch. Happy Independence to all and to all my panelists. Look forward for an invigorating session.
Brilliant, sir. So now, let's start off with the session. The first person I want to bring out is Dr. Manimegalai, ma'am. Ma'am, ECE, you started your life as a preschool teacher in a small school in Mettupalayam, and from there is where you grew. And today, the biggest change is the ECE system that is going to start from 3 onwards. Everybody is looking forward to it. So, ma'am, what in your opinion, is the top 3 or 4 changes you are looking forward to in the national education policy? Over to you, ma'am.
See, actually, to say the educational policy is framed extremely well. How each one of us, we are going to take inside it and then we are going to implement it, plays a vital role. As and now, if you see various medias, they just come out by saying different facts, but they don't see the positive part of national education policy. To me, I will say I'm really happy because as of now, if you take NCERT or whatever the content syllabus, nobody has focused on early childhood syllabus pattern or etc. So everybody, we have our own style of teaching, molding the children before they enter first standard. But now there is a pattern which is going to enter where every child, right from government school to a private school, every child will have a system in their learning. So their system will be very flexible, and at the same time, see, they'll be learning alphabets, they'll be learning languages, they'll be learning numbers, they'll be learning how to count, color, shapes, everything. See, all this already all private schools are doing. But what is the children in the government school they are doing is people have a mindset, okay, their child goes for the noon meal. So the child gets a meal and with that their day is done. But now the government has to train the Anganwadi teachers as well as the Balwadi teachers, and they are going to mold them to the level of the private school and the public schools. But here what I will always say is the children should learn, because if you take 85% of the child's cumulative brain development occurs prior to age 6. So during that stage, majority of the parents, they don't know whether the child falls under the character of learning disability, or whether they have hearing impairment, or whether they have visual problem. So now actually when I went in depth the national education policy, I was able to analyze and picturize things that that is right from zero age, like the moment the child is born, the parents will be given training of how to identify the child's knowledge level also. So when I saw that, I was really happy, because whenever a child is identified hearing impaired, and only when the child is unable to speak, only the parent comes to know that there's some problem with the child. Or until and otherwise, no parent is there to know how to identify the child's problem. So, okay, the other set of parent group, when they go to the pediatric doctor, the doctor says, but at the same time, again, you have a problem there, the acceptance problem. Now they are going to teach the parents itself how you can identify your child's knowledge level, which is very much the most welcoming part of the national education policy, because I have done psychology. When I had to do child education, we had a topic under which way how to analyze and identify the child's disability. So when we go to different villages and when we had to do a screening, many parents were not ready to do that. And one example in the national education policy was they had beautifully put this example: take a box, put some pebbles inside and then shake. You will automatically know whether the child is having hearing impairment or not, which was a beautiful example which they had quoted in the education policy. And there I really felt it is very good. And at the same time, here nowadays, see, the higher end parents, they buy daily a toy for the kid. But here the Anganwadi people will be training the parents also how to do toys with the available material. So again, to say, this national education policy is more of a sustainable goal policy. So in that way, I feel that lots of changes to happen, but how it is going to happen, it's only based on the steps, how the government moves with it and how the schools take into different methodologies and they move forward. So I really feel happy, because so many years that the first level 0 to 6 was ignored, but now 3 to 6 they are been identified, and where they say that 3 to 4, what is the criteria, what are the things that we are going to teach them, so the language development, etc, etc. And when they come to the age group of 5 to 6, before they enter first standard, what is the basic thing that they are going to be trained. And again, when you come to first and second, it's going to be about numericals and languages. again to say in-depth numerical and languages is beautifully dealt with weekly celebrations and celebrations of various leaders, where it will be incorporated inside the learning content.
Brilliant, ma'am. Brilliant. So you're saying it's a brilliant system with parents getting included, numerical systems coming into place, and a lot of structure is coming in. Now, before they used to have either some go to a preschool or not, or southern school. So there are a lot of confusion. Now there is a streamlining. So I would say streamlining. So all of you can write down streamlining of the early education in a systematic fashion. That's what it has come into. Beautiful, ma'am. Next, we'll go on to Dr. Chandrasekhar. Sir, you tell me, sir, from your side, what are the 3 to 4 major changes that you are seeing in the national education policy that makes you very excited? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kannan. And I completely agree with Mrs. Mohan when she said that the policy is well drafted in terms of the intention is amazing, is very impressive. However, I would like to start with a disclaimer that it's all in the implementation. It's all about how we can implement to the best of its spirit and the word inside the policy. Now, that opening, I would like to straight away jump into focus on learning outcomes, debate on over-regulation or under-regulation in the education sector, and that remains as it is. But having said that, even in spite of regulation, there is very little regulation on private schools as well as government schools about learning outcomes. So apart from the board, the CBSE or the ICSE, government per se, there is no regulation on the learning outcomes. Now, what this policy is bringing to the forefront is they are putting an impetus on the learning outcomes and focusing on the learning outcomes through competency-based education or the removal of the silo system where there is no question of, you study a subject or extracurricular. So they are trying to give you that freedom. At the same time, they are going to measure the learning outcome. That's number one. Number two, which I really like in this policy is the revamp or bringing in the culture of assessment. Now, you spoke at the introduction about a holistic 360-degree report card. I'm not looking at report card format per se, but the culture of assessment itself is trying to change. So, for example, they are trying to look at artificial intelligence or computational thinking or measuring the scientific temper of the child. Now, these are very, very exciting words to work with and to also to assess. So I think that's one of the exciting factor for me in the policy. The third one, if I look at it, is the teacher education. So the policy very clearly says that by 2030, we want all teachers to be one qualified, whether it is a 4-year integrated B.Ed or any other format, but then the teachers have to be qualified. Not only that, they also talk about the NET scores and the National Assessment Agency taking care of all those things. So you said it, the Kothari Commission report also mentioned that teacher training is very important, and building qualified teachers is going to be the first step in building quality education system, whether it is private or public. So I think this policy is focusing tremendously on teacher education. And if you saw the policy, the one thing which I want to highlight here is any adult enrolling for a PhD research program, one module is compulsory on teacher training. So whatever may be their area of research, whatever may be their area of subject, but teacher training is very important because that gives them the nuances of child psychology, classroom management, and then they can straight away get into this particular profession of imparting knowledge and education. So for me, these are the three things: focus on learning outcomes. Second is the focus on the assessment, and third is the teacher education and the innovation in the teacher
I think it's
quality.
very, very important, especially the teacher quality, because I truly believe teachers are the torch bearers of our country.
Absolutely.
Because if not for teachers getting that kind of training, that kind of respect and the kind of incentives, we cannot attract great people to come into the teaching profession. And I think this, hopefully, this new education policy will be an impetus that we all come forward to that. So if you all are watching the webinar, you all agree that yes, teachers are the torch bearers. So I want you to type out agree on the chat box. Come on, everybody. We all agree that teachers are the torch bearers. Come on. I think this should be on Independence Day. It should be a tribute to all our teachers. The teachers are the torchbearers of our tradition, and I think we should start this as a movement to vociferously say it to everyone. And next we move to Dr. Bhavani Shankar, sir. Sir, we are really looking forward to hearing from you. What are your top 3 changes you are eagerly looking forward to? Yes, sir. Over to you. Sir, unmute yourself, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Dr. Kannan, you have pointed all of that out on your opening remarks through the slides. So I'm in agreement with Dr. Chandrasekhar for a simple reason. We need to look at what is going to be implemented. So with that rider, I would also start that, see, almost everything that they have mentioned at a philosophical standpoint seems to be very, very desirable. I would say that, wow, so a policy that addresses all of these mentioned on page number 5 of the policy document is very, very interesting. But then what I would focus on as a school leader is something that caught my attention immediately, was to look at the psychosocial dimension. Unfortunately, over these years, this is something that has been sorely missed in the education framework. We have been running after marks, and only thing that has happened all these years is to put the load of scholastic achievement on top of everything else. And even the measure of success in terms of what the school produces as an outcome was through the mark-driven, let us say, measure. So now what this current policy has done is to try and balance all the elements, putting a tremendous load on the physical, creative, psychosocial dimensions and development. And it also takes up excitingly the experiential component alongside intellectual cognition. That is one that really, really appeals to me. Another thing that caught my attention was these Samajik Chetana Kendras as units of social cohesion. See, when we are talking about inclusion, when we are talking about community participating in this entire exercise, we really do not focus on the underprivileged and the have-nots in this equation. See, most of us are well endowed with the right kind of infrastructure, the resources, enormously wonderful faculty, see, excellent families that support every single decision the school makes. They may not be true with community schools and schools that are struggling to keep afloat in the community. See, what this particular policy says is that embrace the community, make sure that there is a participation in this community, and it puts when ownership and accountability on every individual. That I feel it's more like a plea for help. It doesn't say when I started looking at the must, the should, and the will be. I also understood that the policymakers are crying out to the general populace. They're crying out to the educators to say that, guys, see, you are going to be the torchbearers. Make this change at the community level. Make this change at the school. So that's another thing that really, really appealed to me, I would say, as a point. And the mother tongue instruction in formative years. So this is something that all of us feel is very important, because in the families, the child would actually be familiar with the mother tongue instruction. See, we are harping about what English can do to standardize the connection with the kids and create common templates for education. However, the child knows the best when instructions are given to the child on a language that he's very familiar with. And therefore, the mother tongue instruction is very, very important. And I would say it's a welcome change that I would like to see. Another thing that sort of caught my attention was the tertiary education gaps, and how the government looks at a 4-year undergraduation and credit transfers for programs that the children are able to complete, but not sure of more
That's in the
than
higher
80%.
education, sir. Yeah.
So that's in the higher education.
I think in one word, if I can sum it up, yours would be holistic, correct? Holistically bringing everybody together. So if you all agree that holistic education is also very important, type out holistic on the chat box. Come on, everybody. If you agree that holisticness, bringing in tertiary, bringing in everyone together, bringing it as together as a unit, you know, that's something I think is very detailed even in the policy. And next we go to the Mr. Bhavin Shah. Yes, Bhavin Shah, waiting. From your perspective, what do you see as the 3 or 4 most important changes that are happening in this? Over to you, sir. Unmute yourself, sir.
So, Dr. Kannan, first of all, 74th year of independence, and after 34 years, we are here with some change. Okay. So, one of the important aspects that everyone now understands living in a democratic country, what it takes for anything which has to come for a change, you know now the span that you are living in, correct? So after independence, still we are striving for so many changes that it takes 34 years for something to bring up a change. And to me, education is one of the biggest change maker and whatever, but now let's accept what's coming in, right? So number one of the change maker in this policy is the inclusion and the universalization of early childhood care and education. The play-based emphasis, the discovery method, the activity-based learning is something very important that this policy emphasizes. In fact, education world has been advocating it from past decade that we've been doing these national conferences for early childhood education care for the early years, which has now been completely heard. And this is something which is one of the most important change that this policy is bringing in. Number two, the most important part is the emphasis of the foundational literacy and numeracy skill. I hope all our viewers know about the Pratham report and a lot of reports that have been emphasizing where a grade 2 child or a grade 8 child cannot read, write of the respective grades. So the emphasis on the foundational literacy and numeracy skill is very, very important. Another fundamental change that has been made, which is in a mathematical way, it's 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, is thoughtful by nature. Okay, the foundation part by till age 5. So there is what used to happen previously was that a lot of this preschool, the preparation of the preschool was only being made for a child to pass an interview to go, or a preparedness for high school. So this composite structure of early years, which is till grade 2, have great ability for a teacher or for a school to build the foundation year very strong. The preparatory year, which actually focuses largely on the skills, the middle stage, which largely talks about experiential learning, and secondary stage, which also have the vocational in building of it, is a very good composite structure that now no one is going to be looking at only the assessment which is happening at the final year, but there is a continuous check and balance at each and every phases. There is an emphasis on multilingualism. So probably, obviously, when your next topic of challenges and controversies is going to come, but yes, there are 12 points which the policy makes only under multilingualism, which in a way obviously enriches the heritage, the cultural effect, and embedding each and every of the local aspect, and most importantly, incorporation of bilingual language as a medium of instruction, which is very, very important when you look at the foundation years. Another change, and importantly, which they have brought in, is the introduction of vocation in the schooling structure, which predominantly is in the bridge between the preparatory and the middle stage. And one of the most important aspect, I think so, Dr. Bhavani Shankar touched upon, which was about the multiple entry and exit. For ladies and gentlemen, everyone who knows the systems of 60s and 70s did give a chance for variety of disciplinary nature where you can opt for it. The higher education, which has brought in multiple entry and exit, where a child who cannot continue for whatever reason education, they get at least some kind of certification by which this multiple entry and exit is possible. They can continue their education also. At the same time, if they feel that they are prepared for the industry need, they can exit and they can pursue their a career, job, or entrepreneurship. They can continue. So according to me, it's a wonderful document, vision document. The crux lies in implementation. It's something which I always say it's a web series of 27.3 episodes. Somewhere there are flaws where the hero is not visible, which is private education, which is another change. And I hope probably private education is doing a great job. That's the reason they don't want the hero to be there, and they want to give only emphasis to improve government education, which is all thumbs up for the government, and all the best to them.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I think it's a thumbs up. I think he has summed it up with a thumbs up and given everything. But one thing very beautifully Bhavin Shah said, it is a very good document. He stuck with the word document multiple times. So it's all document. It has to now come into life. So that's there where we are. And I think all of us were there. So I think if you all agree with the thumbs up to it, let's all type out thumbs up on the chat box. Come on. At least the document wise, it's beautiful and brilliantly set, you know. We must be happy and proud here. In our lifetime, we are seeing this. After 1968, now we are seeing it. So at least something is moving in education. People are talking on an Independence Day. 700, 800 people are coming to learn about education. I think that's a thumbs up to it. Yes, it's a thumbs up to the government or policy maker inside of that. So as we go on for a thumbs up, now let's we call on Manimegalai ma'am. Ma'am, now you tell me, ma'am, being a school owner, running SSVM institutions, plus being a woman who's so propagation for early childhood education, what are the challenges do you think, ma'am, in this implementation that we could face? Because, you know, you need good quality teachers. Teachers need to be paid. The teachers who are trained have to be retained. Then there is a whole government sector that has to start. Then there is a for-profit preschools that are already available. Now, where do they go fit in? Now, if big schools also start preschools, then where do the children go? Do they go here? Do they go there? Where? How do we handle these challenges? Or to you, ma'am, to find out the challenges.
Sir, the national education policy does not say that preschool should not exist or etc. etc. See, they have given a breakup of 5, 3, 3 and 4. So now actually as school owners, we feel that the school complex has been breaked up. So like schools, they may suddenly go in for, because now they have told us 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So suddenly they may come out with the affiliation plan of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 means. So there will be so many schools who will go off only with 9, 10, 11, 12. There will be so many schools who will be ready to do 5. What will happen to the sector of 3 plus 3?
Okay.
Which is a crucial stage. And again, when the children are going to, for example, if the preschool children are going to come inside the main campus of other schools, I'll always welcome that, because the system will go in such a way what is really needed will be given to the child. Because when the child is studying in a separate play school or a preschool which is out of the campus, as in how Chandrasekhar and Bhavani Shankar sir said, they only train for interviews. They don't train the children for the knowledge part. So when it is needed for the knowledge part, I always say that it is better, but it is quite challenging, because where you have children in the higher class, and that is little easier, and again children of the lower class where you need 100% attention and focus will be quite challenging. But still I will say, because our schools we have right from pre-KG to 12th standard, where we have a separate zone for the parents entry for the kindergarten, and we have a separate entry for the students who of the higher classes. So there is no clash of these students and those students. But for schools where they are having a number more, I think they will be having this difficulty. It's quite challenging. Everybody have to face it.
Yes, very, very challenging. But I think in challenge also comes opportunities, like how beautifully ma'am said, we can split it up. 5 can be a school, 3 and 3 can be one school, 4 can be a one school. So I think that's itself, I think she's giving up that as an opportunity also, that so that everybody can come in together and we can, you know, work together and they, like, you know, bring in that coalitions. Okay. And brilliant.
Here I like to mention only one point. That is what they have spoken about the board exam. for 358. So if the child is completing third standard, and if they write the board exam and when they want to go to another school, now that school will know the literacy, that is the child, the school will know the knowledge level of the child. So otherwise, generally schools will randomly give a mark and they just keep the child in an highlighted manner, where the children, when we check and when we focus, they'll not be able to read or write as in how like till 8th standard. They have that difficulty.
Yes, so that's a big challenge, and I think in challenge also we need to now look at very beautifully how we can come out of that challenge. Yes,
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now next we go to Dr. Chandrasekhar sir. Sir, you have IGCSE school with you. You talk about a lot about globalization. Now here the policy says on Indianization also, with Indian values, plus 3 languages, plus your globalization, 1 more language. So how does all this new education policy fit into an IB IGCSE curriculum? And what would be the challenges for you to now balance? And because as it is, teachers have so much already on their plate. Now, how are they going to balance this new policy, bring in the new things and bring everything together as a cohesion? So how is that possible? Over to you, sir.
Well, Dr. Kannan, I think I will take it in this direction. Number one, with again a disclaimer or a rider that, as Mr. Bhavin rightly said, towards the last part of his speech, the episode series with the hero missing. The policy, to quote the former Secretary Education, Sri Anil Swarup, the policy very conveniently ignores 50%, almost 50% of the private schools in the country. Now, if you look at the standing of the Indian private school system, we rank number 3. The first is the Indian public school or the government school system. 2 is the Chinese school system, and 3 is our Indian private school system. But almost 47.5% of our students in India study in private schools, but this policy do not speak much about that. Now, with that disclaimer, let me get into the challenges, and I'll come to your IGCSE IB part as well. Now, the first challenge, even assuming that the policy is focusing thumbs up on the government schools, improving the quality and all that. Now, just take an example of this lady called Sangeeta Kashyap. Now, Sangeeta Kashyap is very famous in Madhya Pradesh, and to be precise, Indore. Why? Because of the last 24 years of her employment, she's absent for 23 years.
Oh my God.
Okay. And she's in the government school system. Now, she was teaching at the Ahilya Ashram school. Now, why do I say this? Is the policy, maybe it is fantastic about bridging the gap, no silos and all that, but what are you doing with teacher absenteeism? What are you doing with teacher absenteeism? Now, that's a big challenge. The ideas may be worth its weight in gold, but who's going to implement it? Your teacher is not there. The record says, as per the statistics, in every school, out of every 4 teachers, 2 are absent, and in that 2 who are present, 1 do not teach. Right? So that's the real issue. That's one challenge. Now, the second challenge which I want to talk about is your point of, okay, let's jump over to the private sector, and there are different boards, Cambridge board or the IB board or the CBSE, ICSE boards, or even some of the other boards which some schools are running in their schools, how this is going to work with the context of the 3 language system or with the context of these new things. I think in that context, it's not going to be a challenge. Even IB or ICSE or CBSE have already started incorporating a lot of these things inside. In fact, to be very frank, you look at the construct of the policy. Who are the committee members? Some of them have actually read the documents prepared by NCERT and CBSE, where they are trying to bring it back into the policy for the mainstream. So it's really not a challenge in that perspective. Of course, there is the issue of clarity. The clarity is now, even as we speak, IB and IGCSE are evaluating what to do with the 3 language policy. Because even the state governments are saying, the policy very nicely says, as far as possible. It's a guideline. It's not a rule. Now, there is a very big line between guideline and a rule. Now, that's the crack which needs to be sealed. Otherwise, everything will fall into that crack. We may say we are not going to implement the 3 language policy. Somebody may say, no, we will implement the 3 language policy. Again, it will happen. What happened to the RTE? As I speak to you, only 16 states out of the 29 states in the country have implemented RTE to the spirit, right? Because like I come from Bangalore, but I work majority in Telangana. I'll quote an example from my state here, Telangana. The state government is saying, let the central government reimburse the money, then I'm going to roll out the RTE plan. While the rule clearly says it is going to be first you pay out of your pocket and then the 60% is going to be reimbursed. Now, who is going to make the chief minister and the prime minister talk to each other on this part? So same way, there are a lot of these cracks between the three language policy and implementation. The last point what I would like to make here in terms of the challenges for schools or challenges for the education sector in school education and considering the new education policy is the fact of digital literacy. Now people talk about, if you see the policy, they speak about digital literacy, bringing out Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, computational thinking. Now the policy does not speak about digital safety. Today people are talking about spending time online, and we all are doing it due to COVID, thanks to COVID. But the point is, children who are at an impressionable age, who are at a very young age, and you can understand better than anybody as a psychiatrist, as a person who knows what exactly goes in the minds of children, the curious minds, there is no word mentioned about digital safety. Now you're implementing a lot of innovation into the school system, but if you don't implement it or initiate it with checks and balances, there is every possibility that certain things will go overboard. And when it goes overboard, who is going to turn around and solve it? Should we have to wait for 30 more years to solve it? By then it will be too late. So I would like to say that we need to be very careful even while implementing this great sacrosanct document.
Okay, wow, brilliant. I think the one word I can sum up Chandrasekhar sir is care. You have to be careful while implementing, because there are a lot of other areas also that we have to see. There are some gray areas also that are challengeful. There are no clarity in certain set of areas. So brilliantly put out Chandrasekhar sir. Thank you so much on that. And now we go to Bhavani Shankar sir. Sir, the challenges that you think are very, very relevant, and one challenge I want you to address is this challenge of vocational education. In fact, I still remember when I came into your school, you had told me that you're starting carpentry and other activities like electrician, so that your children can, when they go abroad, they can get a better, part-time jobs also along with it. Now, sir, it's possible in your school because you have a beautiful campus. What about schools that are 10 grounds? What about schools that are in mid-segment? How do they bring in vocational education? How do they retrain their teachers? Now, you being a principal, you must be facing so many challenges in changing the mindset and skills of teachers from all age groups, young, old, everywhere. So what do you foresee as the challenges in bringing all of this, and also the point Chandrasekhar said on AI and artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and there is a whole digital coming, then there is a whole ethos and values also right over there. Everything has to be mixed inside the 5.5 days that the child spends inside of the school, and there is a holistic report coming, and then you now have to put all the schedules. 3 languages, you'll have to put a schedule. For the 5 major subjects, you'll have to put a schedule. For PT, you have to put a schedule. Artificial intelligence, you have to put a schedule. Vocational training, you have to put a schedule. Looking at a schedule, my eyes are getting giddy. So over to you, sir. Tell us, how are you going to handle all this? What are the challenges you foresee? Sir, unmute yourself.
See, I sort of reflect on what the earlier panelists spoke. See, one is Dr. Mani Meghla and one is Dr. Chandrasekhar. And see, they have been resonating some of what they feel as challenges in an environment or a landscape of education. But when it comes to school, so it is the implementation ground where the experiments actually happen, and it is the space from which inferences are drawn. See, when I started talking, one was to look at the trade-off between equity and access and the capacity building. See, when we are talking about say normalizing the equity and access template over capacity building, there is always a compromise because there is still this gap between the haves and the have-nots. See, what I can do in a school that is well-resourced, well-funded, well-equipped, so with all the ideal situations it's placed, would be grossly different from what is available to the community. See, when I said that we have a responsibility towards the community, it clearly says that, guys, we need to start including the community in this particular equation. Whatever has been available to us, let's say we are a school which has been granted, one of the first few hundred schools that have been granted this Atal Tinkering Laboratory. See, how we took it across to the community is that we made these children participate in some of these exercises. And incidentally, the current year, we have community school children and our school children jointly putting together a prototype that has been recognized by the Atal Innovation Mission. So this is a little small step that the school can take towards bringing in the community. Occasionalization of education is significantly important because it liberalizes the space. I'm moving from pedagogy to andragogy to heterogogy. So the component of the child determining where he wants to engage and how he wants to engage becomes very critical in his engagement or happiness quotient in whatever he picks up to learn. So the more occasional opportunities are available, the, let us say, non-logical textual learners will have better space to operate and learn from it. We have been hugely experimental here. We have a cluster of students, about 400 or so, within a zone for special education. And we are using, what has been tested by Ron Davis called the Davis learning strategies. So where we are trying to talk sense into learning, which means that we are looking at multiple intelligences and how these multiple intelligences have a randomized combination and permits the children to operate within their zone of interest. So if you're asking me whether these schools, just like us, can contribute to making this problem look smaller, yes. See, there is no specific challenge or difficulty, I would say. It is how I juxtapose. So if I'm smart, I would draw out multiple experiences and create templates. What we try to do is that we exploit a particular situation and draw multiple reports. I can draw a report to give to Education World. I can draw a report to give to Girish Kannan, one to Mani Megla and one to Dr. Chandrasekhar with the same content, but the language being different. So the idea is there is no specific challenge that the schools can may not be able to deal with. See, I think we are equipped. Only thing is that we position ourselves, get the situational intelligence. I would say whatever challenges that they appear are welcome. So if we close down to the challenges, say, my God, it's not going to happen, then it will not happen. So I'm worried about building capacity, over a large span. So we say that we would have in another 20 years, at least half of the unskilled workforce in the entire world. And at least 50% of all the qualified graduates may not be employable at all. That is a cause of concern. There is definitely between how we are skilling our children for a VUCA world, this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that is ahead of us. And I would say the biggest challenge is the purpose with which we engage the children to change ready. And I would say if we are able to do that, we have found solutions for almost anything that has been laid out in the education policy.
Okay, brilliant, sir. Brilliant, brilliant. I think change is the new normal, as we say, COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID. And I think if you all agree that change is the new normal, type out change on the chat box. I think all of us have to do it. Very beautifully, Bhavani Shankar sir put it that you have to change our mindsets. We need to adapt rather than sitting and looking at the problem. Let's look at the solution and we need to be solution oriented. Yes, very good. Brilliant. All of you are doing it. Awesome. So change is the new normal. And next we move on to Bhavin Shah sir. Sir, I have a very personal question on challenges to you. The policy clearly says education, schools have to be not for profit. But companies like Byju's and Unacademy and all these companies are at billion-dollar valuation. They can charge any money that they want and they can give good advertisements to all the media houses. So no media house ever raises a point against them by sponsoring the Indian cricket team. Our poor school owner has to suffer by taking loans. He gets no capital this thing. He has to sit on his head, pay the EMIs, the driver, IMR, the little petty, the poor parents who are also suffering to pay the fees. Why is this duality, sir? Why is this dual system? Why not be truthful? Why not either you go to for-profit and say, yes, like how it's in the US, there are for-profit schools, there are not for-profit schools. You decide which you want to go. Why is this whole, like when a school does online education, the High Court is telling, no, fees has to be reduced. Whereas Byju's has no restriction on how much he charges. He can charge how much he wants. Unacademy can charge how much he wants. And all the media houses are very silent about it. Maybe because Byju's and giving too many ads. I don't know. It's all to you, sir. But this is a challenge I feel that you as a media person, please tell us, sir. What is this thinking all about?
My request would be, Dr. Kannan, you produce a film and make Bhavin Shah hero because they have Shah Rukh Khan and you don't have a hero. So obviously, they are going to charge because they have Shah Rukh Khan. You have Bhavin Shah, we give it free, correct? So education world never, Byju's never give any money to education world. Okay. Jokes apart, sir, very importantly, challenges, for challenges, one has to understand what is our track record, you know, India's track record. India's track record for any implementation has been bad, okay? Just take the track record of RTE and their implementation. It's not good. Our all 5-year planning had drastically failed. So obviously we don't come from a good track record. So obviously be prepared that everything that you are going to counter is going to have challenges. So let's go a little bit deep dive into challenges. And I would like to bring all our panelists who have drawn one on one other point so that our viewers completely understand if they are prepared for challenges, how to counter it. Let's first understand unanimously that this is an opportunity, first time that has happened, that sitting on a webinar, all India is together. If you want a better future of our country, then any challenges that are going to come through, we have to solve it together. Past all policies had a lot of divide and rule. If you really want good implementation, then each and every voice from each and every state has to come united to counter the challenge. Now, I would like to come and state with 3 important aspects of challenges are the 3 I's. Number 1 I is investment. How is the investment going to come in? Well, the beautiful document is going to be kept in implementation. Second is the same crux, is the I is for implementation, and third is the industry. Okay, how is industry going to really interject at every level so that this system is verified and we give exactly the human resource which the economy wants. Now, I would like to largely focus on implementation part. Okay, I think so. Ma'am started with saying there are these verticals of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, and there are going to be challenges for implementing. Let me draw down a point over here. Is very important that entire policy or the way this is, the entire draft is there, they are largely giving an encouragement or guideline, because obviously at every implementation stage, they are giving back to NCRT, SCRT and the roles for that. So you can get a guideline from it. But the challenge which is going to be there, very importantly, is how this preschools, particularly, for example, which were not in the ambit of government, which now they are going to include in the right to education. So consider a private school or a private preschool, which is there till kindergarten in Tamil Nadu or in Mumbai or in Delhi. Now they have got a chance to go upgrade till grade 2, right? So obviously there are going to be registrations and bureaucracy, or I call it as educracy, which is going to come in, where there are a lot of this so-called Inspector Raj, which are going to be coming in for check and balance, right? Because if you're going to opt for increasing your grades, obviously you have to go through the channel by which you do a lot of application, a lot of monitoring. People are going to come, judge you, and you're going to encourage a lot of educracy, which is going to be a challenge for a private educator to counter, because they do not have much wherewithal to, obviously encouraging a lot of corruption in it. The second important part is I think so. Many questions which I am reading is also on this language part. Probably the 12 points which I am telling, like 4.11 to 4.23, which talks about multilingualism. An important point to note, and there is a lot of hue and cry in the entire nation which is coming in, but please emphasize on 4.11, the point which they emphasize is the medium of instruction. Okay, I think so. We are getting a bit confused on the assessment part or the examination part. Okay, I think so. Where this three, see, every school for that matter, if they have two languages also, there is a whole liberty to have more sections of it. A kid has got voluntary effort, or a teacher can go ahead still. If I want to pursue certain things to learn, it's my democratic right to learn if a school is providing. So medium of instruction is been encouraged for bilingual approach, which is called as the playground language or the local language, which they can connect, which is very, very important during early years, so that kid gets familiarization with a lot of the terms which are there. Going forward in point number 4.13, it still says, as Dr. Chandrasekhar also mentioned, that it says they don't want to impose any kind of restriction. Okay, so now it is on the implementer how you're going to see it. And that's where again I'll repeat that all of us has to stay united. If there are points which are misinterpreted or they are not been properly judged, then it can create chaos, which actually is not the intent which is scripted in it. The way you are going to understand is the way you are going to implement it. So if we are going to move out from the assessment part, that means the examination pressure, then the kid can learn more language. There is no problem at all. In fact, a Tamil Nadu kid learning Kannadika or learning any other language, it's learning. The problem comes when there are 5 examinations coming for languages, then I completely understand that there is stress on kid and that is not good. Okay. Teachers who have the wherewithal is on the investment, right? Saying how far the government mechanism is going to invest into teachers training by which they are equipped, which is practically impossible. In a metro environment, that's the reason in a metro environment where you have all the secular class and the variety of mother tongue, let the medium of instruction be whatever school is convenient with. But encouragement of learning languages as not part of the only assessment mechanism is a welcome move, or that particular challenge, if a school can counter for it, it could be catered to it. Another important part is, as now Dr. Bhavani Shankar also mentioned about the vocation education or the happy quotient, which is going to be that the challenge particularly is if parents are going to be really demanding a lot. See, we as a society also have to understand that schools are the product of what society wants. If you do not want to encourage broad-based learning, holistic learning, and at the end just crave for grades, then this whole spirit of the policy is going to die out, right? So if still you are obsessed with 99%, then any kind of vocational ability that you want to inculcate into it, it is just going to be in the books. But it is a great challenge also for the society to accept that vocation is good. When I'm trying to say that, yes, if your kid who has scored 99% and want to go to humanities, please have it, no problem. Because now you have multiple entry and exit, your kid can have better future for it. So largely I feel if the challenge is if in our mind, I think we have to break that barrier. You can move the policy the way you want it. If you get misguided, if you get into the pressure of government bureaucracy, then this is going to die out. So this is a very good opportunity in the challenge that while this entire implementation is actually on us now, okay, that how we are going to take a step forward and we are going to educate our state representative that this is what the things I want, that are the 3 I's that I want: investment, regular investment, taxpayers investment going in right direction, implementation not only in spirit but in action where all stakeholders are involved, and number 3 is the industry participation, which will ensure that all the deed that an education institute is doing is accepted by the industry, and that's how economy grows. So 3 I's for me, which are challenges, has to be involved.
Still, you didn't answer my question on Byju's and EdTech.
Sir, I told you. Sir, I told you now.
I was waiting for the answer, but then I didn't get it. But so anyway, it's fine. I'll come back to you on that.
It's just the Shah Rukh Khan effect, sir. That's it. I know that is on the controversy side, so I've kept it. I've holded the card. Don't worry.
So now on the controversy side, we'll start with you itself, sir.
Okay.
I think you and Mani Meghale, ma'am, we'll start with the controversy. A child, say my daughter is studying Tamil and English in Tamil Nadu, considering Tamil Nadu has this very special gift that we'll study only 2 languages. And now suddenly I get a great opportunity. Bhavin Shah calls me and says, education world is offering Dr. Kannan a great opportunity, and I go to Bombay. Now my child has to learn Marathi and Hindi from A for Apple. Now what do you want me to do? Are you wanting me to stay only in Tamil Nadu? Because definitely I am sure your mother, Marathi, Uddhav Thackeray and everybody will not allow me to learn Tamil there. And even if I ask for a Tamil teacher, it will not be available in Bombay. Now, what is the future of my daughter? Do you want me to be away from my daughter and say, oh my God, she's already in 5th standard. She has not learned all these 2 languages. Why should she start? Or will she be secluded from a real school for her language classes where with just 1 student or something? How is this even possible? You know, my question on that is, how is this even possible? First, I'd like to hear from you. Then from Mani Meghale ma'am also, why is this Tamil Nadu the odd state out of India along with Andhra Pradesh? Whereas the whole country is agreeing for 3 language policy, but this Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh have some aversion towards it. And the beauty is the same Congress which is in Tamil Nadu is ours, but the same Congress, when they take a flight and go to another state, they are for the policy. So why is this whole duality? We'll start with one liner from Bhavin Shah and then go to the rest. Yes,
Dr. Girish, it's largely the political intent. Okay, so this is politicizing the entire matter, whereas the crux does not really speaks about that. So yes, rightly mentioned, if your child is deprived of not giving an opportunity to learn language, then obviously she's going to struggle in any of the nation part where she's not going to understand instruction or going to pursue the profession that she would love to do it, right? So the most important part is, please, the political representative will take all the due advantages to misinterpret things if we want the things the way we want to implement, right? So if you have 2 language policy, no problem, you go ahead, because that probably now the state has decided it. But to all the educators, no one is stopping you to give exposure to the 3rd, 4th or the 5th language, right? So demand for it. Policy is saying that we are not imposing, correct? So demand for it, get it. If you get an educator, go for it and give the child. No one is going to put you behind bars, or no one is going to restrict your hand not to do it. If the political people are going to just take advantage that, okay, we want to have Tamil, yes, it's one of the oldest language probably to me, then Hindi, okay? So if it is giving that kind of an importance, I mean, all salute to it and no problem. Keep the statehood with you, no problem at all. But if you want your child to grow further, then embrace language which a child or a parent wanted. No one is going to hold you back.
So I will tell you, sir, I am 39 years old. Next month on September 4th, I become 40. Considering this is a lockdown and I was a product of 2 language policy, and every time I come to North Indian schools to address, they look at me like an alien, you know, like an alien, that are you Indian? So in this lockdown, I decided to take the change in my hands. This is my Hindi tuition notebook, sir. I have an Hindi tuition teacher online and I have started to learn. Now this I am learning at 39 years of age. I hope my daughter doesn't make the same mistake and learns it much earlier. That's why I want to go to Mani Meghale ma'am and then to Chandrasekhar.
This does not demean English. I think so. English universally has been accepted. So,
but I think Hindi is the most talked language in our country, and I think everyone should know it. This is my personal opinion, though I come from Chennai.
Let us hear from
Mani Meghale ma'am and Chandrasekhar ma'am. You can unmute and yes.
Sir, I will always say, I think as and how Bhavan Shah said, everybody are misinterpreting. When you go in depth inside the content, they say n number of languages can be taken. You can use the digital media online. So where and again at the same time, we needn't enforce on exam. We can teach through drama, through quiz, through games. So all these things can happen in the online portal and digital portal. N number of languages can be taught. According to us, we are, see, like how to say, people misinterpret it and they fix everybody's mind. Like as and how you have the horse eyes being blindfolded, like, okay, this is a thing, this is how you have to go. So in such a way, we Tamil Nadu people are being blindfolded in such a way, you focus only on this, not on the rest of the things. So if we start learning and understanding other languages, it is difficult for the people to rule our state, because our people are highly knowledge and highly talented, where it is quite difficult to answer and satisfy all these people.
So
And
let's,
above,
yes ma'am, go ahead.
and above all, I will say this policy where we are talking more about language also has one big drawback of GDP. GDP 6%. See, GST so much they are collecting. Nobody is opening their mouth for it, because it has to come from their part to the schools. So where in the year, I think 54 years before, 1986, they had given 6% GDP for education, but until now they had been using only 4.43, not more than that. Where is the rest? And now again the population has increased. The young India population is increasing like anything, and at the same time they are giving all these facilities. So they are saying artificial intelligence, digital classroom, there are so many other, like the playground being well equipped, aerated classrooms, well lighted classroom with all play equipments, indoor and outdoor. Everything is fine. Unless they increase the GDP for the education only, things can happen in the right way. So to close up the GDP, they are talking about the language. That is what I will say.
Brilliant, ma'am. Excellent. I think you should become in politics. Please look at a career for that also. Very nicely, you have put another issue inside of this issue. Now, let me do a small survey with the audience. All of you who agree that 3-language policy should be there, type out 3. If you agree 2-language should be there, type out 2. Let it go, go, go. Everyone, go. 3, 3, 3, 3, 2. Come on, everyone. 3, 3, 3. I think it's a unanimous 3. Holistic 3. Holistic 3. That's it. The verdict is right over here. We have 700 people over here. And the right is very, very clear that most of us wants a 3-language so that our children can go all across India, because India is one. Yes or no? Yes, I think all of us agree that India is one, and we need a language to connect all of us. And that's very, very important. And now I go to Chandrasekhar, and then we'll go to Bhavani Shankar on controversies. Chandrasekhar sir, considering Bhavan Shah was very elusive, I will go to you directly. How do you feel, sir? I was going through Facebook. One post I saw, teachers, so many teachers out of job, schools closing down, fees is not coming, very, very sad state. The next post I have seen, Baiju's owner Ravindran saying, I have bought Vita Junior for $300 million. I am ready. Money is not a problem. Any great company I am ready to do. I am growing year on year. I am having so many crores as profit. And I was itself confused myself. Being a person in education, sir, and now with this new policy, there is going to be restriction of fees. Now, if fees is not going to come in at the right time, at the right amount, then how do private institutions serve their community, number one? Number two, from the 6% GDP, I don't think anywhere it's mentioned something is going to come to private schools. It is going to be predominantly for government schools. So where are the private schools going to get the funding to implement all this vocational and all the ASNLs and everything, and AI and artificial intelligence, and bring in new people and upskill the old teacher? A 50-year-old teacher has to be now skilled to equal to a 30-year-old teacher. A new exam is going to come. Everybody has to take a 3-year exam. All of this requires money. This is on one side. Second question, 10 grounds also there is a school. In 10 acres also there is a school. Now, where is the 10-ground school going to come up with holistic education, sports integrated, a holistic report card? So, will this not bring the haves and have-nots distance larger? That is, I studied in a good 10-acre school with great infrastructure, paying a good fees. I get all the holistics of NEP. I study in a poorer school, a mid-segment school with a less amount of ground in a crowded area. I hardly get anything of NEP. Then what will be on a report holistic card saying that yes, you have done all of this, like, you know, what happened to the CCE system? Will that be the ones that is coming right now? These are the questions I want you to answer in the controversies. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Dr. Kannan, I think you have touched the most painful nerve for anybody when you talk about the policy. Let me try and attempt answering your questions one by one. But before even I get there, the point on Byju's, that's a classic example of right hand not knowing what left hand is doing. At least that's the perception Byju's thought they were doing, because if you look at the depth of White Hat Junior, the initial investors were Byju's owners itself. The promoters are the same. So it is just that they handed over and transferred the property or the shares to the other side, and that's a different thing. So about Byju's, that's what I would like to say, and nothing more on that. Coming back to the policy. Now, your first question was about how the investment is going to be channelized. Who is going to give you the money for running all of this? See, let's understand this. Again, successfully, the policy has not spoken a single word. In fact, they have created a barrier or a barricade against for-profit education. So even today, anybody who reads the policy will get an opinion, not somebody from the education sector, but anybody from the outside the world. If they read the policy, the judgment or the verdict is for-profit education in India is a crime, next only to a crime, right? And let me give you a statistics. Out of the 10 top economies of the world, 9 countries permit for-profit education. Only India do not permit for-profit education. You already covered that point in the speaking about US or other countries, including Australia. Now, if you look at investment, if you look at this, I personally feel this statistics will give you a clarity. Now, you look at, for every 100 rupees a private school spends on educating a child, government spends 300 rupees. So that means 1/3 is the cost at which we are able to get quality outcome in a private school as compared to a government school. Now, this very fact itself says that the government school education system of implementation is ineffective, and the private schools are 3 times more effective. Now, why am I trying to draw your attention to this particular piece of statistics is government should, it's high time to realize that we should not be in the business of running schools, but we should be in the business of funding schools. So
Okay.
the whole idea is, what is government? Government is provide all the resources, provide the framework, put the right people on the job, and run the show. That is governance. Now, if I say I am only putting the resources, I am only deciding the guidelines, and I am only sitting and running the show, then which person is answerable to which person? So the question here remains to be answered, that the governance is ineffective when it comes to running. The government should move back, take a step back, and talk about, let's fund schools, both in the private sector, public sector. There are experiments, public-private partnerships are done, where there the problem was, government said, we will pay the staff salaries, we will take care of the infra part for you, but you run the show. But then the problem was, the staff members or the teaching community realized that the money comes from the government kitty, their answerability, loyalty, and accountability shifted to the government, which means again the quality became ineffective. So there are issues which we need to sort out, which are deeper than what we are discussing here, where there needs to be a clarity on for-profit education for the right purpose. So till that is sorted out, your investment part will always be a question mark. No matter any number of policy amendments and changes will happen, but this investment part will still be a question mark. And that great question of Byju's or any private player can raise funds both from the equity market as well as from foreign, but a government or a private school owner is still have to run from bank to bank or NBFC to get some funding for just building a science lab or a math lab or putting a tennis court in the school is a problem. Now, that is my answer to the first question. The second question which you spoke is a bigger question and a more graver problem to handle. In fact, people feared the same thing with RTE. When RTE was introduced, they said, this is only going to guide people on caste, religion, and other things, because an auto rickshaw driver's son is going to be sitting in a classroom, the same classroom where maybe some other IT professional son is sitting, and then he will have more access to a lot of gadgets, technology, skills, but this boy will not have. What is going to happen? I think that's not going to be the challenge in terms of implementing this, because I firmly believe, this is my personal belief, education inside the school is not directly dependent on the infrastructure of the school. So your 10-acre campus to a 10-room campus will not directly impact the quality as long as the teacher is able to do justice to the subject and the child. So it's
but
not
what about sports and holistic stuff, sir?
Yes.
That's what.
So when it comes to sports and holistic, government has to create that kind of an environment, which I'm sure they will do. Is about allowing students to participate and have access to maybe corporation playgrounds or swimming pools and other things. But then again, it all boils down to the proactivity of the headmaster, the DEO. Because see, I'll tell you, in the government sector, if you are proactive, you can move mountains. And if you are not proactive, you cannot move a piece of paper. So it's all about the person. So this policy directly gives you the framework to work with it. They'll give you a balance sheet or a mark sheet and then say, okay, you can balance the scores for the children on these parameters. But at the end of the day, it is the implementation, as we have been discussing. It is the teacher, it is the headmaster, it is the school principal, it is the whole team, the community of educators who have to come together. I can sit down and put false grades and say holistic report card is filled up, even in a private school, right? So that nobody is going to measure and match. But the point remains, we need to implement, as Mr. Bhavin rightly said, not just in spirit, but also in action. That's the most important.
So action. I want all of you to type out of the chat box. Action. We need action and we need to see action. Come on, everybody. If you all agree that the truth is in the action and the pudding is in the action, let's all start to get to that action. Yes. But I think very well he said it. And now to you, Bhavani Shankar, sir. See, technology has been very well adapted, as far as I know, in higher education centers, because the children are more mature. They know how to handle things much better. In fact, there's a college in Chennai called Sairam Engineering College, which I'm a part of. And I saw them implement beautifully. In fact, in Coursera, they have around 2 lakh, 3 lakh courses. The children have started on their own. And they are doing on their own. They're doing self-learning. They're doing coding. Brilliantly, all the old teachers are also adapted. But I want to ask you, sir, I'm a teacher at 50 years old. I've taught for the last 30 years. Now, if you go and ask me to start studying with a 24-year-old, the same level, and give the same exam to me, what will be my confidence level? And how do I learn to adapt? And how are you as a principal going to handle these things? Over to you, sir. Unmute yourself when you can say. So you can unmute yourself, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
The will to stay a lifelong learner. See, as you had pointed out that at 40, you are just beginning to take Hindi lessons, so that that happens online. That clearly points out to the desire to stay a lifelong learner. And when you started your opening remarks, and I recall that you said that the loop of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So which means that the baggage that I carry on a continuous basis is burdening me with the belief that, see, there is no more I can carry. All that we have asked is to offload that baggage. So my best teachers, I would say, are my students. So what has happened over these years is that every time I set out to prepare a lecture notes, I ask my students to research independently and bring on to the discussion their own learning. And then once that happens, these children pass on their learning to me, and every passing class, my lecture demonstration continues. Means that see, the teacher here is not the who is permitting the teacher to build on his own learning. So I would say that there is, of course, we have these challenges. We will have to motivate the teachers towards offloading this particular package. For instance, there are teachers who are 50 plus who say that, sir, we find it very difficult to embrace this technology. I would say that, okay, let me also go with you. I'm 55 years old and I don't understand technology either. So let us start together. So all that they need is a partner. So let us say if I am willing to learn with a 24-year-old or a 20-year-old, or for the sake a 15-year-old, so my partner who is 3 or 4 years younger to me is also willing. So I don't see that as a challenge itself, and I don't see any controversy emerging out of this. So I feel that this is more of a challenge perception. I do not think that the teachers are so close now, because let us say that if you do not embrace technology, guys, 4 months down the line, you're going to become fossils, because you're not going to find employment. And that is a motivator, the fear, the anxiety of losing jobs. So see, now is a blessing in disguise. This COVID situation is a blessing in disguise. It has promoted so many people to embrace technology so fast. And almost all that I've learned in this 4 months, I have not learned in the last 25, 30 years. See, and most of this, the teachers taught me. Teachers older than me, teachers younger to me, they have taught me. The children have taught me. They have come up with, sir, do you know that this exists? So I should be willing and I should be open enough to accept. I would say here is an acceptance, and all of this is basing out of your will to reflect every day and your will to change and learn. So I would say this is more of a challenge than a controversy.
So with this, we go to the last round where we will be talking about the call to action and then the concluding remark from each one of the speakers, so that we can get to the crux of it. Yes, we'll start with you, Bhavin Shah.
Okay, then if you're giving me an opportunity for call to action, but let me finish the controversy, because I was obedient enough to come back to say to you to say that let me start your Baiju's reply. But very quickly on the Baiju's part and on the private education, see the sector of education contributes to 1.75 lakh crore to the economy. Okay, and private education itself is one of the largest employer in the sector. Okay. Tactically, they have kept private education at bay for one simple reason, because the way currently everyone is muddling through and making their ways to continue education, they want it to remain the same. See, remember one thing, one important aspect, whatever would be the curbing, the point number 8.3 states curbing of commercialization and profiteering by for-profit schools. Okay. But let me tell you, while there are more and more curves that are there, see, demand for quality education is never going to decrease. Until the time demand is there, let me tell you, whatever curbing they'll put, all our private educators will have ways and means to cater to that demand. So while they have tactically kept the hero out of the movie, let me tell you, the quality education which private education can give is here to stay. They will find ways and means and scale, because the demand is humongous and government has failed time and again. They are trying to put things in order, which we wish that they could, so that they can manage their home properly. But let me tell you, whatever they have kept out of the entire picture, we will come back. Now, call to action. Okay. Now, call to action, number one point could be all of us, while this document, again, I don't know, probably I can go on a length, what was the timing wise they could have had during the COVID time the policy out. But let me tell you, this is the way we should interact. Webinars and the way we have connected each other. The call to action is in India, particularly educator segment, and my humble appeal to all the teachers that are there, that this time they shouldn't take a step back. In fact, the most progressive countries are those countries where teachers have voted their elective members, and teachers' appeal are being accepted by the Prime Minister and the presidents of the nation. Unfortunately, teachers of our nation, they do tremendously good hard work, they do tremendously dedicated work, but when it comes for opinion building, we do not hear their voice. And this is where I think the first call to action should be that teachers should be standing up to every occasion to see to that the spirit of the policy is also implemented in action. Number one. Two, be very, very important. The largest stakeholder which are parents' body. And I would humbly appeal again to teachers and through education to all, and please do not get on to rumors and do not get on to any kind of this misinterpretation which will pull down the entire flow of making a good policy into implement. I think so as a society, let's embrace and accept. There are critical points which are missing in the policy by way of sports, as you rightly mentioned. As a parent, I am depressed because I couldn't see really something really given. So please demand for it. Okay, the call to action is that parents have to stand up and say, hey, look, this is something that we want, and particularly government should be coming ahead and giving us that atmosphere. So all the three stakeholders that are educators, parents, and students should come together to see to that each and every part of the implementation, they are consulted, their votes are being heard by their local state electives. Because as you know, from now, the whole action is only going to be with the states. If states are going to implement it well, and there is a equity across all the states, then only we'll see if 10% of this thing get implemented. Let me tell you, we are on a good progress path. Okay? So according to me, these educators, parents, and students giving equity.
So brilliant, sir, brilliant. I think you spoke that. And what are your concluding remarks, sir, on that? What would be your last one-line takeaway for the whole audience on the national education policy?
I would just say, again, all educators, parents, and students should come united to implement this policy. And my last conclusive remark would be, it could be a controversial government, please leave the job of education to the experts. Do not come and intervene unnecessarily to derail Indian economy and the future of our nation.
Brilliant, sir. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I think wonderfully spoken. And next, let's move to Mani Meghale, ma'am. Ma'am, what is your call to action and your concluding remark? Go for it, ma'am.
Sir, first of all, I'll say it should be implemented with full spirit. That is very important. And second, the policy should be dealt phase-wise. It should not be in a hurry that it has to be implemented immediately. Third is prioritization should be given more importance. And fourth is comprehensiveness in the implementation must be there. Because only when these areas are being focused properly, things can go on fine. And fifth, since education is a concurrent subject, it will need the collaboration of the center and the states, as in how Bhavan Shah said. And finally, I like to conclude is the state and the central must have that satisfaction mode of education. See, they should not, as and how Bhavan Shah said, we should not, it should not become politics. Let's join the hands together and see that it is for the welfare and the growth of our country. And my conclusion will be here, parents must come out of the fast education system, which is very, very important and need of the hour, because as of now, fast food is there, fast fashion is there, fast education system, because the parents only search on to the online portal and they go for, okay, if my child studies this, they will get 99%. Oh, if I put my school in this, if I put my child in this school will give the grade. So the child is being crushed in such a way for marks. So that I always say as a conclusion, parents must be educated well, and they must be molded in such a way. Only if the child is having the holistic development, the child can achieve, and not only it's a child's achievement, it's a country's growth.
Brilliant, ma'am. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Wonderful. And yes, sir, Bhavani Shankar, sir, what is your concluding remarks with call to action?
See, I would sort of go with what Bhavin said and Ms. Mani Meghale said. See, the add-on to that is the teachers that need to bring in the capacity, the training that is given to the teachers, and their will to make this change is only going to make the future more progressive. I would say the plan for me is to ensure that the teachers build capacity as the educators, so that the teachers, please make sure that you have the right capacity. It is not about equity in access for you, because you are the nation builders, and only through you there is going to be a change for the future. Therefore, you are very important and the central piece of the puzzle. So you are the keys to the success of the youngsters. And dear parents, please understand you're the locks, and see, you need to open to let things happen. The more you resist, the more you drive your ambitions, your anxieties, your fears, your aspirations in the children are not going to get the benefit out of education. Sadly, because I would raise a controversial point here. See, when the teachers are getting trained by private coaching centers to crack the teachers' eligibility test, so we know where we are headed to.
Yes.
So
Wonderful, sir. That's another nerve point. The coaching center can,
and
yes.
Here I would say, at last, for me, the biggest incentive in all of this is a peaceful, happy, healthy, engaged, and a skilled ward that comes running to you and hugs and shouts aloud that you have made a positive change in his or her life. So I would not look at success here. And in conclusion, I would say biggest thing here for me is, if philosophically all of this is very, very desirable, the should, the ought, the must, the will be, so they need to be supported seriously by how, who, where, and by when. I simply see that in this entire policy, the checks and balances place are sorely missing, even for the government schools. See, forget about the private schools. So this is what I conclude. So I would
Brilliant,
say
sir. Brilliant.
checks and balances.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. Over to you, Chandrasekhar, sir. Your concluding remark and your call to action.
Thank you so much. And I agree with all of them. In fact, the key word which is coming out is implementation, checks and balances. So I will not repeat myself there. And I will also not go into preaching mode of call to action, because here this webinar is all about teachers, educators. Now, if you look at it, I personally would like to say there is only one call to action, and the policy gives us the benefit to profess and also to move that call to action further, which is strengthening the agency of the student. Now you look at it, all of us are focused on giving the best quality education to our child inside the classroom. COVID is a classic example. Schools may be closed, but learning has not stopped. Teachers, I know personally, and I have huge respect for them, who could not even open a Gmail account are now on Google Classrooms. Yeah, so
Brilliant.
the whole idea here is to give value and quality to children. And this policy, if you look at it from the call to action perspective, gives you a fantastic opportunity to do all of that innovation in your classroom. Forget about it, whether the policy says it is for government schools, it is not for private schools, it doesn't matter. You are a teacher in India, you are a teacher in 2020, and this policy is relevant to you. So use it to strengthen the agency of the child. Inter-curriculum or the shifting between different things or the entry and exit, all those practical aspects are already available now. You have a bigger framework. And in fact, if I have to put it in this way, Madam spoke about fast food. I will say it's a buffet. You've got all options at your disposal. Now you got to use it to make the child better. Remember, my concluding statement would be only this. Education is not qualification or information, but education is transformation. So transformation can happen thanks to this policy. It's going to be there. And let me also say that we are not going to get results in a hurry. This is going to take 20 years. Some of us may not even be in the education space actively involved, but at the end of the day, it's a seed. It will take its time for it to give the fruits, but we have to do it. In fact, I can go at length about talking about NEP. Dr. Kannan, I have been sharing you those reports. I can share, if you permit me, on the chat window so that people can actually look at what are the other things they can look at from the teacher perspective, from the parent perspective.
Sure,
because
sir.
I don't want to talk about those things, but I would conclude by saying education is not information, but education is transformation.
Brilliant, sir. Brilliant. And I think that's something very beautifully told by all the panelists. Now, my concluding remark, I think we should be really happy, pinch ourselves and say, we are alive to see this happen. At least in document format, somebody has started it, somebody has gone over it, somebody has come over it, and we want to now bring that change. And I think very, very beautifully, starting with Mani Meghale madam, who spoke about the early childhood education, the importance from an owner's perspective, to Chandrasekhar sir from a management perspective of our managing different schools and what he thought of it, to Bhavani Shankar as a principal. Very beautifully, he brought all those areas into it, and Bhavan Shah from being a person who's well in this area and a media person, how he brought his perspective. I think the people over here inside of this webinar, you have got a 360-degree view of all angles through the 5 C's on the education system and what would be on implementation. I would conclude by saying this: implementation, implementation, implementation. Nobody learned the swimming from a textbook. If the policy as a document cannot be done come back unless we get into the pool. We need who? The teachers, the school owners, educators, and also the parents, and then finally the students. When they get in, because ultimately it is all for the students, and ultimately it's all about getting the students into the play. And I think that is what the concluding remark. It's the, as beautifully Bhavan Shah said, even if 10%, I will again repeat, even if 10% is implemented, it is a humongous change in our country. Humongous change. And I think we should now look at it, and rather than looking at the downside and the upside, let's all join together as one family, one India, one family of educators, support each other, help each other, inspire each other, share knowledge with each other, bring all of us together, because ultimately it is the Indian child's dreams that has to come out on an equal platform that works for everybody. And I think that is my humble request to each one of you watching over here. Let's unite together on this Independence Day, bring together the welfare of our children first. Our children first, our teachers important. Let's, as a nation, give due respect to our educators and teachers, because they are the ones who are really creating the next generation for us. And I think it is high time as a nation we come together to create this. With this, I thank all of you for being here inside of this program. And I'd like all of you to type out of the chat box your one biggest learning that you learned out of this webinar. Come on, everybody. Come on. One biggest learning that you have learned. One biggest learning. Quick, everyone. One biggest learning that you all learned. Yes, brilliant. Implementation, daily learner, unity, to be in charge. Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. Beautiful. Documents, together we can do it. Implementation, yes. Taking action, implementation, to be responsible for transformation. I open up. Brilliant. Education is for everything. Implementation, transformation. Awesome. Come on, go ahead. Teachers, go ahead. Yes. That's the spirit. Yes. 3 eyes, yes, 3 eyes. Education is this. Teachers should be the support. Hard work, vocational education, implementation, action, brilliant. Expensive learner, brilliant. Implementation. Brilliant, awesome. That's the spirit. Come on, that's India. And I think if the same spirit can be there in our implementation, I think this will be a wonderful, wonderful journey. So with this, thank you, Bhavan Shah. Thank you so much, sir, for spending time with us. I know your time is very, very precious. Thank you, Mani Meghale, ma'am. I know you've become an online college school management, managing all online classes. Thank you, Bhavani Shankar. In your busy schedule of researching all the biology, zoology books, you have been able to spend time with us. It's fabulous having you. Thank you, Chandrasekhar, sir. It's a great honor and privilege. I'm waiting for the lockdown to get over to meet all of you all again in person. and looking forward to chat with all of y'all with a lot of other knowledge. So with this, thank you all for all of you being here, and thank you so much. This is available on YouTube. You can go back and please watch this webinar. I would request all the teachers, principals, school owners, please go watch this webinar again, because the first time when you heard it, it would have been a lot of information. Second time, third time when you get it, you will get the real meaning, because it's very rarely do you see people of this quality, this essence, this level of integrity coming up and talking so openly about their challenges and their controversies and the changes they are looking for, and such an apolitical, I repeat, apolitical discussion that we had over here from all formats and all those things. So thank you all. Thank you all, and God bless all of you all, and looking forward to seeing all of you all again in future webinars. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thank
It was a
you.
wonderful
sir.
gathering.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
And bye to all my co-panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So it was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all.